Iranian terrorist leader Qasem Soleimani is taken out. The media play defense for Iran and Obama. The Democrats show their anger, and Ricky Gervais obliterates Hollywood. Welcome to 2020. This is the God and Freedom Show. This news cycle, guys. This news cycle. I swear, it's like it's only been like 10 days into the new year, and we've had about maybe 20 years of news cycle material just coming all in at once. Like, this year has started off insane. So in other words, I have a lot to get to today, like a lot. So, but before we get to all that, I do want to. Here's a little pitch real quick. So let's talk about, war in Iran and all that crap. Makes you wonder, like, if we do actually go to war Iran, there's going to be a lot of, our soldiers being killed and injured and all that. And the thing is, when our soldiers are injured, they're sent to hospitals or overseas or brought back here, and then are discharged from the military. And the problem is, like, when they get here, they have like no good system to help take care of them, because the fact is the government sucks in this area. They have not done a good job taking care of veterans who deserve it so much. So that's why this all comes down to rely on us, like private citizens, to do this. That's why, like, a good place to go to is the Winter Warrior Project. Like, this, not only do they help with physical injuries, they also help with the mental injuries, like PTSD and all that good stuff. This is a really good organization right here. They do a lot of good stuff. So I do recommend doing a little kind of donation type thing. You can go with you do a monthly donation, a one-time donation, or whatever, and you do whatever amount you want, of course. But definitely check it out, because these guys do so much good stuff for this country. It's like this is the least we can do to return the favor. Alrighty, so on to the news. Where do I start? Let's actually start with Ricky Gervais, because the Iranian stuff is gonna take the majority of the show, and I really want to get to this Ricky Gervais stuff because it was hilarious. So Ricky Gervais is a British comedian who, he's famous for kind of rants like this. Like, he just doesn't care about the Hollywood crowd whatsoever. So, and the thing about the Hollywood crowd is, like, they're just so, like, uppity, like, elitist class. Like, they know everybody, they're above everybody and all that. They know better than anybody else. That's why they, a lot of them preach like these bad political opinions or whatever, even though like most of them don't even know anything about the subject they're talking about. So, and the thing is, like, at these Oscars or Golden Globes, is usually what these are just these celebrities patting each other on the back, like, and then spelling out nonsense and just attacking the middle of the country and all that. So we've been waiting for years for someone to return the favor on them. And Ricky Gervais did that at the Golden Globes the other night. So, yeah, he was the host for the Golden Globes. And, it was... I didn't watch the Golden Globes, but I did see the clips of what he said. And it was great. Really great. So, let's start with, this part. He's basically talking about, making jokes or other thing, and here he's talking about, Netflix, people are watching Netflix instead of, network TV, which is kind of true. Network TV is still popular, but there's a lot of more people going to Netflix, and rightfully so. Kind of, Netflix is awesome. But he was talking about this show called The Afterlife, where this guy basically wants to kill himself because his wife dies of cancer or whatever. And here is basically, this is a Jeffrey Epstein joke, pretty much. And here's what kind of is said. You could binge watch the entire first season of Afterlife instead of watching this show. That's a show about a man who wants to kill himself because his wife dies of cancer. And it's still more fun than this. Talking about the Golden Globes, of course, which probably is. Like, most TV shows are better than the Golden Globes. Probably. I mean, I'd rather watch Twilight than the Golden Globes. But he continues here. Spoiler alert, season 2 is on the way, so in the end he obviously didn't kill himself. Just like Jeffrey Epstein. Shut up, I know he's your friend, but I don't care. So yeah, basically what the Hollywood crowd was doing is like they were like, all like these stone faces saying, oh, "How dare he make an Epstein joke? That we can't do that here. We don't do that here." And the fact is, probably a lot of them were knew Epstein, kind of friends with him. I'm not saying they were involved in that what he was involved in, but they probably knew him. But like, most of the entire crowd was like just stone-faced, shocked by this joke. I mean, really, the only guy who like was actually legit laughing was Adam Driver, because I mean, didn't seem like a loon, unlike some of them. He was obviously a Marine too, so that probably why he's kind of not like your typical Hollywood actor, or whatever. But this isn't even the best part right here. Like, he just continues on, and yeah, it was great. Like, here's the best part right here. It's the last time. Who cares? Apple roared into the TV game with a morning show, a superb drama about the importance of dignity and doing the right thing, made by a company that runs sweatshops in China. Well, you say you're woke, but the companies you work for in China, well, you say you're woke, but the companies you work for in China, unbelievable. Apple, Amazon, Disney. If I was to start a streaming service, you'd call your agent, wouldn't you? So if you do win an award tonight, don't use it as a platform to make a political speech. You're in no position to lecture the public about anything. You know nothing about the real world, and most of you spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg. So if you win, come up, accept your little award, thank your agent and your God, and he says, F off or whatever. And okay, it's already 3 hours long, right? Let's do the first award. Like, slow clap for Ricky Gervais right there, and he is exactly right. Like, these, like, at most of these award shows, like the Oscars, the Emmys, or whatever, like, these people who win the awards use it as like some type of thing, go out there, Trump or conservatives or whatever, make some kind of political speech. And the thing is, like, most of the time they know nothing. They don't know anything that they're talking about. Nothing. And basically, like, Ricky Gervais is basically calling out on it. Like, you guys do not know nothing about what you're talking about. So, how about this? Just accept your award and just get off the stage. Simple as that. And that's right, he was. Of course, the media and the Hollywood crowd was just all shocked and like horrified by this. How dare he say that to us? We're Hollywood. We're elitists here. Like, how dare he say we shouldn't be talking about politics, even if we don't know anything about it. So, I mean, the slate was probably the worst about this whole thing, because Slate is obviously a left-wing or like news source right here. So yeah, they're also very angry at this, and here's the kind of headline for this. Ricky Gervais Golden Globes jokes ranked in order of like jerkiness. That's modifier, by the way. From the righteously provocative to just plain mean. Yeah, this is a big problem. He was just mean to a Hollywood crowd. I mean, this is the same Hollywood crowd that, has been supporting, people like Harvey Weinstein or just all those type of people. And they want to get all, like, up in arms because of Ricky Gervais calling them out for the BS. So here's what the piece says. Going into the Golden Globes, the biggest question was not who will win the night's biggest awards, but how much of a jerk Ricky Gervais would be. Of course, of the course of his 4 previous hosting gigs, Gervais has cultivated the reputation of a provocateur, unafraid to challenge the rich and powerful, whether it be taking aim at Mel Gibson's anti-Semitism or Caitlyn Jenner's transition. Although he is sorry about that one time he made fun of Tim Allen's movie career. And that's the thing about Ricky Gervais. He's not a right winger by any stretch of the imagination. He's pretty much a left winger. But so he doesn't like Trump or anything like that. But he's not a loon. Like, he's actually willing, probably actually willing to top people on the other side. And he's not like, your far like leftist that just doesn't like anybody else's opinion, wherever. But it continues here. On occasion, Gervais does genuinely speak truth to power, but much of the time it's just, well, being kind of a jerk. So we've separated the shocks from the sneers. The big swings from the petty jabs, rank them from the most to least. I'm jerkish. Enjoy. And here's the category of just plain mean right here. Like, it's pathetic. Like, seriously, they like say like, oh, he just so mean to us. And this is the thing with the media as well. Like, whenever like, say Trump or conservatives like go after the media, they say, how dare he be so mean to us? I mean, never mind the fact that they've been like just plain awful for like years at this point. But if you dare say anything bad about them, you're just so mean to them. Like, they're the victims that are so victimized in America that you can't say anything bad about them. Like a lot of these people in the media are the most like privileged, uppity people in America, the most richest people in America, and they have the audacity to say, like, you can't be mean to us. You can't be mean to us. And the same goes to the Hollywood crowd. So. And luckily, I mean, not everybody in Hollywood was like this. There's plenty of people who are just, kind of normal, or are, conservative at least, or just whatever. And people like, Tim Allen, Adam Driver, like I said earlier, or just whatever. But as Hollywood on average is like it's like this. And that's why you see conservatives, going like dropping off, like not seeing any Hollywood movies or whatever. I mean, personally, I really like movies. I don't see myself doing that, but again, that doesn't mean I don't think Hollywood is a garbage organization. It much is. Alrighty, so now that we got that out of the way, so let's get into Iran. So, if in case you haven't been paying attention, you've been living on a rock. There's been a big escalation over in Iran, because what happened was that President Trump ordered a strike on the Iranian general terrorist leader. It was Qasem Soleimani, who was responsible for killing hundreds of Americans, and he's a big deal in Iran. He is like pretty much the leader of their terrorist organization. He is responsible for many terrorist attacks throughout the Middle East and all that, especially in Iraq. Like I said, he's killed many Americans. So he's a very bad dude. Like, he's a dangerous guy. And thankfully, President Trump ordered a strike to wipe him off. And where this all started, actually, kind of where it's actually, General Mattis has been General Mattis, I hope, yeah. He's been basically pushing Trump to actually order the strike, because they have had his location for months at this point, and Mattis is wanting to try to get Trump to order the strike to wipe him off. And President Trump has been kind of hesitant, and all, because at heart he is kind of not a full isolationist, but he is anti-war. He doesn't want any sort of conflict, whatsoever, in which I don't blame him at all. We don't need another full-scale war. And thankfully, under President Trump, unlike, Bush and Obama promised not to lead us into war. Bush was a completely different story, of course. I mean, we had 9/11, so, we had a good reason to go into Iraq. But with Obama, we had, no reason. He promised not to get us into war, but ended up happening in the first place. So, but with President Trump, he promised that he wanted to get into the war, and he has so far fulfilled that promise. But where this all kind of really escalated is that over Christmas break, over New Year's break, a little bit before New Year's, I believe, it was some Iraqi militia who has ties to Iran was basically storming the U.S. embassy in Iraq, or in Baghdad, and basically trying to burn down the place and all that, kill American soldiers in there. And, of course, the media was just saying this is Trump's Benghazi or whatever nonsense. The difference is Trump ordered a response team, immediately. And with Benghazi, there was no response whatsoever. None. They had to defend themselves for 13 hours until, the militia there stopped. So that's not even remotely comparable. So, with this, basically what happened was this whole, kind of attack was initiated by Soleimani. So this really initiated Trump. Okay, we need to take out this guy before he tries to do anything else and kills more Americans. So on the January 2nd, on the Thursday, after New Year's, he basically ordered a strike, and boom, he was dead. And this caused so much outrage over in Iran, and many people in the media were outraged by this. Democrats were outraged by this, and all that. But I'll get to that in a little bit. But I'll get to the media. But first, Iran, and of course, Iran was very upset by this. This is their general or whatever, despite the fact he's probably killed many of them. Here's the real secret. Probably a lot of Iranians are actually happy he's gone, because for months at this point, there's been an upswing of protests and try to get some kind of revolution there, because the Iranian government is just awful, very, very bad. And with this kind of general out of the way, it could help them actually start a proper revolution to overthrow the government. Keep our fingers crossed for that. But anyways, the main the Iranian media or the kind of leaders of Iran have been all upset by this. There was, excuse me, a massive funeral and all that. So what this kind of prompted is that Iran promised they were going to retaliate and all that. And let's say it was less than par of what they did. They're basically trying to save face with the way they retaliate. But before we get to the details of all that, in order to get it, you gotta go to YouTube to get the rest of the video. So, yeah, it'll be under the YouTube channel. It'll be under my name, Sean Clinton. You can get the entire video, the rest of what I've been talking about in this episode, and also you can get some back half of this episode. You can get where I go over the book of John. I'll be in John chapter 6 today. And also I'm going to talk about the best story ever. So, yeah, if you want to get the rest of that, just simply go to YouTube. Otherwise, you can find me on SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Play, iTunes, and Stitcher. Yep, that's about it. If you don't want to go to any of those, I'll see y'all next week. Alrighty, so basically what happened was with the Iranian retaliation is that they didn't do much with it. But they launched ballistic missiles on, was it Tuesday night, I believe, and they were going after some bases, air bases that was hosting U.S. and coalition troops there. And the thing is, they strategically made it to where it hit different, like, empty buildings in there, because the reason why they did this, they say that it was by accident they missed, but they did on purpose, because they know if they actually were to kill Americans, like, they'll be gone. And here's the thing about Iran. Like, people are saying, oh, we're on the brink of war with Iran and everything. Nobody wants war with Iran. Trump doesn't want war with Iran. Nobody. It's including Iran. Like, because they know that if they were to go to full-scale war with us, like, they'll be gone in about 3 weeks to a month. At most. So, yeah, this was basically what this kind of launch missile attack was. It's just kind of a safe face thing, and just it did nothing. So what happened was President Trump just took it as like, hey, we won. Iran is basically backing down, which is what this was. Iran is basically saying they're backing down from their escalation. They may try other attacks in the future, but it'd probably be more like this than anything, because again, they're not stupid enough to actually go to try full-scale attack on Americans or even American soil or whatever. Even if they do, again, they'll be wiped off in a month. So, in the kind of response to this, President Trump took it as a win, and he has a right to do so. And so, basically, the following morning, on that Wednesday, he gave a terrific speech, kind of press conference about this whole thing, and here's what he said about it. As long as I am President of the United States, Iran would never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. Good morning. I'm pleased to inform you the American people should be extremely grateful and happy no Americans were harmed in last night's attacks by the Iranian regime. We suffered no casualties. All of our soldiers are safe, and only a minimal damage has sustained at our military bases. Our great American forces are prepared for anything. Iran appears to be standing down, which is a good thing for all parties concerned and a very good thing for the world. No American Iraqi lives were lost because of the precautions taken. The dispersal of forces and early warning system that worked very well. I salute the incredible skill and courage of Americans, men and women in uniform. For far too long, all the way back to 1979 to be exact, nations have tolerated Iran's disruptive and destabilizing behavior in the Middle East and beyond. Those days are over. Iran has been the leading sponsor of terrorism, and their pursuit of nuclear weapons threatens the civilized world. We will never let that happen. Last week, we took a decisive action to stop a ruthless terrorist threatening American lives. At my direction, the United States eliminated the world's top terrorist, Qasem Soleimani. As the head of the Quds Force, I hope I said that right, Soleimani was personally responsible for some of the absolutely worst atrocities. He trained terrorist armies, including Hezbollah, launching terrorist attacks against civilian targets. He fueled bloody civil wars all across the region. He viciously wounded and murdered thousands of American U.S. troops, including the planting of roadside bombs that maim and dismember their victims. Soleimani directed the recent attacks on U.S. personnel in Iraq that badly wounded 4 service members and killed 1 American. He orchestrated the violent assault on the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. In recent days, he was planning new attacks on American targets, but we stopped him. Soleimani's hands were drenched in both American and Iranian blood. He should have been terminated long ago. By removing Soleimani, we have sent a powerful message to terrorists. If you value your own life, you will not threaten the lives of our people. As we continue to evaluate the options in response to Iranian aggression, the United States will immediately impose additional punishing and economic sanctions on the Iranian regime. These powerful sanctions will remain until Iran changes its behavior. In recent months alone, Iran has seized ships in international waters, fired unprovoked strike on Saudi Arabia, and shot down 2 U.S. drones. Iran's hostilities substantially increased after the foolish Iran nuclear deal was signed in 2013, which is completely true, and I'll get to that a little bit. And they were given $150 billion, not to mention $1.8 billion in cash. Instead of saying thank you to the United States, they changed death to America. In fact, they changed death to America the day the agreement was signed. Then Iran went on a terrorist spree, funding by the money from the deal, created hell in Yemen, Syria, Lebanon, Afghanistan, and Iraq. The missiles fired last night at us and our allies were paid for with the funds made available by the last administration. The regime also greatly tightened the reins on their own country, even recently killing 1,500 people at the many protests that are taking place throughout Iran. The very defective JCPOA expires shortly anyway, and gives Iran a clear, quick path to nuclear breakout. Iran must abandon its nuclear ambitions and end its support for terrorism. The time has come for the United Kingdom, Germany, France, Russia, and China to recognize this reality. They must now break away from the remnants of the Iran deal, and we must all work together toward making a deal with Iran, and that makes the world a safer and more peaceful place. We must also make a deal that allows Iran to thrive and prosper, and take advantage of its enormous untapped potential. Iran can be a great country. Peace and stability in the Middle East peace and stability cannot prevail in the Middle East as long as Iran continues to foment violence, unrest, hatred, and war. The civilized world must send a clear and a unified message to the Iranian regime. Your campaign of terror, murder, and mayhem will not be tolerated any longer. It will not be allowed to go forward. So he continues on in all this, and he's exactly right. And I'll of course post the entire transcript in the description of the video. But he ends up with this: tens of thousands of ISIS fighters have been killed and captured during my administration. ISIS is a natural enemy of Iran. The destruction of ISIS is good for Iran, and we should work together on this and other shared priorities. Finally, to the people and leaders of Iran, we want to have a future in a great future, one that you deserve, one of prosperity at home and harmony with the nature of the world. The United States is ready to embrace peace with all who seek it. I want to thank you, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you. So yeah, this was a terrific speech by President Trump, a terrific speech, and he made the speech that he needed to make after, the missile attack and everything. And yeah, this is a good, very good thing by the Trump administration. Trump doesn't want a full-scale war. But in order to prevent full-scale war like this, you need something called deterrence. And this is the thing with the Obama administration, when they signed the disastrous Iran deal, which is basically giving piles of cash to Iranians to stop their nuclear program. But the thing is, they used that money to build up the terrorist regime. So it didn't do crap at all. And the thing is, Obama saying that we only have two choices in this thing: appeasement or war. And that's a false choice. There's a third choice that nobody ever considers, and that's deterrence. You basically say, you mess with us, we destroy you. And Iran knows, now, after this attack, they mess with America, they will be destroyed. That's why they back down. So see, deterrence does work. So for all those people, saying, "Oh, we're on the brink of full-scale war," no, we are not. But of course, the media, Democrats have just been all up in arms by this. And Nancy Pelosi is angry by this, that she's like angry, saying, President Trump should have sought approval from Congress for going out and doing this strike. The thing is, on a principle level, I sort of agree, but even on full principle level, like the kind of strike that President Trump initiated here, I wouldn't say it doesn't fall under the need of a declaration of war. And according to, so if he were to go start a full-scale war without congressional approval, that would be a completely different story. But strikes like this doesn't really require congressional approval. So Nancy Pelosi just kind of speaking nonsense. And thing is, she was all silent when Obama actually started a full-scale war in Libya without getting congressional approval. So she's obviously a hypocrite here. But she's actually put out a vote in the House to basically limit Trump's war powers in Iran, to make sure that he gets congressional approval. Which, okay, and the thing is, they keep saying, Trump's declaring war or getting war powers, whatever. This is not a war. This is deterrence. It's a complete difference. And again, nobody wants war. And the only way to do that is to do deterrence again. But, of course, the legislation did pass in the House, but it will not pass in the Senate, so it's going nowhere. But, Nancy Pelosi, all the Democrats were all up in arms by this, how dare Trump do this? While ignoring the fact that Obama did pretty much the same thing without congressional approval, so, It's nothing to do with it. It has nothing to do with them wanting to protect the Constitution. It's that they hate Trump and that he has dismantled the Obama administration's priorities and all that. So here is a tweet from a few people. Here's one from Elizabeth Warren, and here's what she says: Soleimani was a martyr, responsible for the deaths of thousands, including hundreds of Americans. But this reckless move escalates the situation with Iran and increases the likelihood of more deaths and new Middle East conflict. Our priority must be to avoid another costly war. Again, which is exactly what this strike did. And the thing is, people have been echoing her, saying Trump is the one that's escalating the violence in Iran and everything. They're saying completely ignore the fact that Iran has been escalating terror for years at this point, but they believe that as soon as that it was all fine until Trump threw away the Iran deal, which is complete nonsense. Again, they've been building up the terror for years at this point, especially since the Iranian deal. But here's a couple of tweets from Ben Rhodes, who was one of the chief sponsors of this Iran deal, and he's been a doof during this whole thing, saying Iran was on the brink of moderation until Trump came in. Complete lies, of course, but here's one of the tweets that said: It's interesting to consider the astonishing amount of time that Trump can just lie directly to Americans on television and who will not see those lies fact-checked. Okay. First of all, the media spend most of their time trying to fact-check Trump on everything, so I don't know where he's pulling that out. But the idea Trump is directly lied to Americans and all that, okay. Last I checked, you directly lied to the Americans as well about saying, Iran is become moderate and everything. So I don't want to, that you have no leg to stand on here at all. And here's another one right here. I'm guessing that if Iran announced it was abiding by JCPOA limits, the counter-ISIS mission was suspended. The Iraqi parliament voted to expel U.S. forces. Iran fired off ballistic missiles at U.S. bases. No one would say Obama had a win. So, okay, what? It doesn't make sense. So first of all, like, Iran was not abiding by the Iran deal limits, and especially like a lot of Democrats are saying that, you know, Obama did nothing wrong or anything. Like, how dare Trump go after Obama? Despite the fact that, Obama's Iran deal was just garbage, 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 and it did nothing to help the Iran regime. So I don't know where he's pulling that out. So yeah, the Democrats are just all up in arms by this, but we're just waiting until they get to the media. The media has just been worse at this whole thing. But first, let's get into like some Republican response. Of course, most Republicans are, happy about this, but there's a couple of Republicans that are kind of upset, including Senator Mike Lee, who went like completely lashed down on Trump over his press conference. I mean, on a principle level, what he was saying, I agree with, but I don't know. Yeah, the way he said things, and honestly, I don't agree with everything he said in that thing, but on a principle level, there's some I do agree with it. But the thing is, so there's a difference between like this right here, and he's like very knowledgeable of the Constitution, so he's coming from the constitutional perspective, and the Democrats are coming from a perspective that they hate Trump and they want to protect Obama. That's pretty much it. But here's where the media comes in. Like, they've been garbage. It's been headline after headline. There's been complete and utter garbage or whatever. So here's a piece from the New York Times, and basically this is over what happened was after the whole missile strike. There was a plane from Ukraine that went down. It's a commercial flight, and they killed 63 Canadians and some Iranians as well. And it's actually shot down by Iran missiles, but accidentally, according to them. But anyways, but the media has been blaming the U.S. over this, saying if Trump hadn't killed somebody, this wouldn't happen. Come on, like the Iranian regime open fires on its people fairly frequently. So I mean, yeah, this is no shock. But anyways, here's what it says. Evidence that a plane was shot down in Iran may upset U.S. and Canadian relations. As evidence emerged that an Iranian missile may have failed a jetliner, causing the death of 63 Canadians, journalists pressed Justin Trudeau if President Trump should bear any blame. Montreal, new evidence indicating that Iranian surface to air missile caused the plane crash this week that killed 63 Canadians is likely to undermine Canada's already acrimonious relation with Iran. But the disaster also threatens to damage Ottawa's crucial but fraught partisan partnership with Washington. On Thursday, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of Canada said that his country had intelligence showing that Iran had downed the Ukrainian jetliner, which was carrying 63 Canadians among its 176 passengers and crew. But he stressed that he wanted a thorough investigation before reaching any conclusions. The families and victims of all Canadians want answers, he said. If it is determined that it was Iranian, Mr. Trudeau will have to grapple with the question of whether the United States, Canada's most important ally, played a role in provoking the events that ultimately resulted in the loss of Canadian lives. The plane crashed on Wednesday morning, only hours after Iran had launched a barrage of 22 missiles against 2 military bases housing American troops. The Iranian attack was in relation for the United States killing of General Qasem Soleimani, who one of the most powerful figures in Iran's leadership. This is the thing when they kind of steer away from calling him a terrorist, even though he was a terrorist. So there's been a lot of people in the media echoing this, saying, Trump is responsible for the death of the Canadians and all that. It's just utter nonsense. But this, again, the media is trying to play defense for Obama and just screw out the Trump. Whatever. But here's another piece from Esquire. And this is going after Trump's speech the other day because during the speech he was, I think it sounded like he had a cold or something, maybe. But he was probably not had gotten any sleep for a while during this whole thing, so it does make sense. But people have been going out there like he was slurring words and all that. So here's what it says. Some of what it says. Excuse me. It remains incredible to watch the people on the TV respond to a speech from the President of the United States, breathing heavily and frequently slurring his words, as if another basically normal thing just happened. We spend our days now trying to decipher whether a former game show host with a perpetual goggle tan zero impulse control has a strategy to solve one of the most persistent, complicated geopolitical crises of the last half century. Historians will marvel at this phenomenon, assuming we make it that far. Okay, what? This is the problem here. Like, they keep saying, like, Trump's escalating a war, or this just is not true whatsoever. But it continues. That said, it appears Donald Trump hit the most important notes in his speech from the White House Wednesday morning, in that he signaled some openness to diplomacy and seemed to get the message of the Islamic Republic's Tuesday night missile strike on a U.S. military base in Iraq. Iran clearly felt it had to respond after the U.S. assassinated its second most important figure, Qasem Soleimani. But the Iranians made it clear they were not seeking an immediate escalation. Of course, because they'd be stupid to do that. Many observers point out that there's every chance that the long-term Iranian response to real response has only just begun. Trump essentially announced that there would be no immediate military escalation, but he did provide further evidence that the assassination label is justified with respect to Soleimani's killing. He offered no proof of imminent attacks. His administration used to say Soleimani was orchestrating against Americans, which therefore justified the strike. Okay, I mean, first off, we gotta, what's your definition of immediate threat? And plus, he was planning attacks on Americans, and he just launched an attack on a U.S. embassy. So, and he's been killing Americans for years, and he's been involved in this terror regime for years at this point. So, to say he was an imminent threat is just nonsense. And plus, if that's the case, I mean, Osama bin Laden was an imminent threat, but they were all cheering loudly when Obama ordered their killing of him. So I'm seeing a double standard here. So yeah, it's all stupid, and then it gets continues right here. And this is the New York Times is obituary of Qasem Soleimani. And here's what it says: Qasem Soleimani, master of Iran's intrigue built on Shiite Axis power in the Middle East. The commander helped direct wars in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen, and became the face of Iran's efforts to build a regional bloc of power. He changed the shape of the Syrian civil war and tightened Iran's grip on Iraq. He was behind hundreds of American deaths in Iraq and waves of militia attacks against Israel. And for 2 decades, his every move lit up the communications networks and fed the obsessions of the intelligence operatives across the Middle East. On Friday, Major General Qasem Soleimani, the powerful and shadowy 62-year-old spy master at the head of Iran's security mission, was killed by an American drone strike near Baghdad. Just as his accomplishments shaped the creation of a Shiite, I hope I'm saying that right, axis of influence across the Middle East, with Iran at the center of his death, is now likely to prove central to a new chapter of geopolitical tension across the region. General Soleimani was the vanguard of Iran's revolutionary generation, joining the Islamic Revolution Guards Corps in his early 20s after the 1979 uprising that enshrined the country's Shiite theocracy. So, I mean, the fact that there's like this type of like obituary to him is weird to me. It doesn't make sense. But let's contrast that. Let me find the other headline real quick. So here's a comparison obituary that the New York Times also posted. It's about Coach Sam White for the Cincinnati Bengals for the NFL. And here's what the headline said: Sam White, who was the last coach to lead the Cincinnati Bengals to the Super Bowl, but who was later fined by the National Football League for borrowing a female reporter from the team's locker room, has died. And compared to the Soleimani's obituary, Qasem Soleimani, master of Iran's intrigue and force, dies at 62. So, okay. So the coach, it's very bad for a coach to. It was so bad for the coach to borrow a female reporter from the locker room that they had to put that in his obituary. But Soleimani killed thousands of Americans and Iraqis and Iranians. But we're not going to bother to put that in the headline. And this is the thing with the media. They've been just playing defense for Iran, just for whatever reason. They've been basically spewing the propaganda. I'm pretty sure the Iran's government is having a fun time with what the U.S. media is saying. It's all been gross. Very, very disgusting stuff. But anyways, here's the last kind of piece I want to go over. And it's an opinion piece in the New York Times. And it's titled, "The Day After War Begins in Iran." The outpouring of grief for Qasem Soleimani in this country's first act of retaliation. The last time I wrote seriously about a war in Iran was in 2012. It had been an especially fraught year, with Iran's Revolutionary Guards running naval exercises in the Persian Gulf, and Israel and the United States conducting joint drills in safety of oil shipping lanes, looking entirely uninsured. Oil prices rattled skittishly. Everyone suddenly monitored ships' headlines speculating that Israel might attack Iran's nuclear sites. My assessment was considered the day after. to imagine how Iranians would react to if their country was bombed by Israel. And this is basically like saying like Americans are basically the bad guys in this whole thing. It's all gross. Like, this media has been echoing this. The Americans are the real bad guys here. Iran, Qasem Soleimani was a victim in Trump's terrorism. People have been calling Trump the terrorist, despite that he has launched no terrorist attacks or whatever. So it's all been gross. But just when I say this, if Obama had done this, the media would have been all, cheering and everything. But since Trump did it, of course, they're all up in arms because not only did he do it, something good that's good for America, he also ruined Obama's reputation, which they can't have that. Obama must be protected by all costs. Alrighty, so I think that's all for the Iranian stuff. I mean, there's a lot more I'd rather get to, but we just don't want to have too much time. So let's get to the Book of John here. So last time we went through, we started the Jesus Bread of Life section of John chapter 6, and we went from verse 22 to verse 40. So we're going to continue from verse 41 to 59. And you can follow along, of course, and I'll be in the New Living Translation. Then the people began to murmur in disagreement because he has said, I am the bread that came down from heaven. They said, isn't this Jesus, the son of Joseph? We know his father and mother. How can he say, I came down from heaven? But Jesus replied, Stop complaining about what I said, for no one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws them to me. And at the last day I will raise them up. As it is written in the scriptures, they will all be taught by God. Everyone who listens to the Father and learns from him comes to me. Not that anyone who has ever seen the Father, only I, who was sent from God, have seen him. I tell you the truth, anyone who believes has eternal life. Yes, I am the bread of life. Your ancestors ate manna in the wilderness, but they all died. Anyone who eats the bread from heaven, however, will never die. I am the living bread that came down from heaven, and anyone who eats this bread will live forever. And this bread I will offer, so the world may live in mine, as is my flesh. Then the people began arguing with each other about what he meant. How can this man give us his flesh to eat? They asked. So Jesus said again, I tell you the truth, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you cannot have eternal life within you. But anyone who eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life. And I will raise that person at the last day. For my flesh is true food, and my blood is true drink. Anyone who eats my flesh and drinks my blood remains in me, and I in him. I live because the living Father who sent me, in the same way, anyone who feeds on me will live because of me. I am the true bread that came down from heaven. Anyone who eats his bread will not die, as our ancestors did, even though they ate the manna, but will live forever. He said these things while he was teaching in the synagogue in Capernaum. So yeah, this is a really good passage right here, and basically, in short term, what he's saying about the whole, he's the bread of life and everything. Like, he's the guy that will give you true eternal life. Basically, you can't have eternal life unless you go through him and either bread that he offers, which is certainly true. But there's some people that say there are many ways to heaven and all that. And that's not what Scripture says. Scripture says no one comes to the Father except through him. So And that's what basically he's saying here in this. And you kind of see how he echoes the communion, which is, you drink, eat his, the bread and wine, which is resemblance of you eating his flesh and drinking his blood, which gives you the eternal life. So, yeah, again, it's a really good passage. So next week is to be over. We're going to start with verse 60, and probably finishing off the chapter. And the next section is called "Many Disciples Desert Jesus," and so that'll be interesting to go over. Alrighty, so let's get to some good stuff and bad stuff. So, some good stuff. This story right here is the best story ever. I'm not kidding. I'll put this link to this article in the description below, because it is just glorious. So you've heard the whole, kind of Florida man meme or whatever. And, there's been Florida man does X, Y, and Z. Florida woman does X, Y, and Z. But now there's a new thing. Florida couple does X, Y, and Z. So here's what it says. And it's just so awesome. Oh, it's so awesome. Okay. I don't know if I can keep a straight face reading this, but I'll try. Couple arrested for selling golden tickets to heaven. Florida couple arrested. Alright, so it's so good. This happened in Nashville, Florida. Tito and Amanda Watts were arrested over the weekend and were selling golden tickets to heaven to hundreds of people. The couple who had sold the tickets on the street for $99.99 per ticket told the buyers tickets were made from solid gold, and each ticket reserved the buyer a spot in heaven. Simply present the ticket at the pearly gates and you're in. People can sell tickets to heaven, a Justin police spokesman said, but the Watts misrepresented their product. The tickets were just wood spray painted gold with the ticket to heaven amid one, written in marker. So it wasn't even a legit thing. It was probably like some little kid trolling type thing. You can't sell something as gold when it's not. That's where the Watts crossed the line into doing something illegal. Here's the best part here. Tito Watts said in his police statement, "I don't care what the police say. The tickets are solid gold. It ain't cut up with 2x4s. I spray painted gold, and it was Jesus who gave the chimney fire behind the casing instead of sell them so I could get me some money to go to outer space." Okay. I met an alien named Stevie who said if I got the cash together, he'd take me and my wife on this flying saucer to his planet that made a diary of crack cocaine. You can smoke all the crack that you want totally free. So try to send an innocent man to jail, and see what happens. You should arrest Jesus because he's the one that gave me the dueling tickets and said to sell them. I'm willing to wear a wire instead of Jesus. So good. It's so good. Amanda Watts said in her police statement, "We just wanted to leave Earth and go to space and smoke rock cocaine. I didn't do nothing. Tito sold the tickets to heaven. I just watched." Oh, excuse me. It's clear that people were on drugs. That seriously, when they go to Planet Outspace, made entirely cocaine. Oh man! And here's the last part. Police say they confiscated $10,000 in cash, 5 crack pipes, and a baby alligator. Oh man, the story is awesome. Oh man. Oh, I love the story so much. This was the best thing. I laughed harder the first time I saw it, read it. So, oh my god. Okay, so yeah, I don't have time. I'm not gonna worry about getting to best of the week because let's just end this episode off. First episode of the year off with a good note. All right, so I'll be back. So that's all I have for today. So I'll be back here next week with all whatever other craziness happens. Remember, you can find me on SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Play, iTunes. Yes, I said iTunes. I now was able to get my podcast on iTunes. Hooray for me. Okay. Anyways, and I also on Stitcher, and hopefully in the future, iHeartRadio maybe, and some other sites. But otherwise, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all next week. My name is Sean Clinton, and this is the God and Freedom Show.